What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Keeping Up with Cash. It's your host, Cash Money Morgan. How's everybody doing? No one answers. That's okay. That's okay.
That's normal?
That's normal.
All right, then.
So today I actually have a very interesting guest. It's actually one of my bosses, which is bold of me since my 1-year review is literally next month. But, you know, YOLO.
This won't come into play. We'll be fine.
Yeah, we're keeping this separate. So one thing about Jeff, though, is I think he's very funny. I used to have this list in life where I top 5 funny people I meet in my life, and I sort of personally feel like you made top 3, and he's probably like, what, that's so crazy. But I think it's the people who don't try to be funny, that are just like naturally funny, that I just find hilarious. So congratulations.
Well, thank you for that. I really don't try to be funny all the time. Yeah, a little laugh track.
Laugh track, yeah.
I like it.
So, Jeff, why don't you give a little bit of bio, kind of about yourself, where you're from, where you grew up, stuff like that.
All right. Well, I didn't know you really wanted to bore your listeners to death, but we can start there. I was born and raised in Huntington, West Virginia, which is right where Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky meet. It's on the Ohio River. It's very picturesque, but unfortunately, it's not very economically stable. So a lot of people are born and raised in Huntington and find their ways around the country. I'm a Marshall University, so I am a graduate of Marshall and a big supporter of the Thundering Herd, as are my children. Let's see, I lived in Huntington for my first 29 years. And then, 29 years. Worked for a beer distributing company there, was a sales guy. Did some other stuff that was kind of interesting for where I was in life and my age. I had a lot of fun. And then went back to college and finished up. And when I was finishing my degree, I started working in a restaurant. And it was a white tablecloth kind of fancy restaurant, and a guy would come in that I had met once before, who actually lived in the building that the restaurant was in, and he was the CEO of a big steel mill that was in town. And slowly but surely, like all the girls that worked in the restaurant, like they just couldn't handle him. I mean, he was very abrasive. He was loud. He cussed a lot. I mean, like he was like a sailor. But he was, just a passionate man.
Just like challenge accepted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I go into the kitchen and a couple of the girls are crying, and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, well, none of us want to wait on Mr. Petro anymore. And I'm like, well, I said, I'm just tending bar. It's one table. I'm like, I'll take care of him. So I started taking care of him, and, we hit it off pretty good because underneath that thick skin and gruff, he was actually a pretty funny guy and a fun guy. And he always told me, he said, hey, when you graduate from college, I'm going to hire you, and you're going to work at Huntington Alloys. And I was like, well, that's cool. At least I've got like a solid prospect out there. Wasn't really something I wanted to do. And right about the time I graduated, my sisters threw me a surprise party that was a total surprise, like literally. Like, you could have knocked me over the feather when I went in that party. I was just like, are you kidding me? Yeah, it was like Christmas Day for a 2-year-old, So as I'm rounding the corner, getting ready to walk into this surprise party, I see the Herald-Dispatch, which is the local paper, and the headline is, Inco sold, Petro leaves. And I was like, well, there goes that. And then I walk in, and everybody's like, surprise! And I'm like, okay, so that totally melted that away for a while. But anyway, that's how I ended up getting into the metals industry. He called me about 6 months later and said, hey, you never sent me your resume. And I said, well, you're not the CEO of Inco Alloys anymore. And he goes, well, that doesn't mean I'm not a lot more colorful than this. I'm not going to cuss on your podcast. But he went into some explicitives of explaining to me that he's still a president and CEO of an international company, and blah, 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 blah. So that's how I got my start. And turned 30 working there, and I was running a service center, which is kind of similar to a lot of the operations that we do here. And then so in the course of a year, I had 5 different jobs with Haynes, and I actually moved 5 different times with Haynes.
Wow.
Yeah, in the first year. And I ended up in St. Louis. So in St. Louis, golly, how much do you want me to talk? Because I just feel like I'm like totally sucking the oxygen off
however,
here.
just kind of how you got to TCI.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's a long story.
Okay. Well, like the Spark Notes version. So.
All right. So what are those kind of? Is that like Cliff Notes?
Yeah.
All
yeah.
right. So they changed the name on them in the last 40 years.
This is how
or
it goes every day at work. It's I say something and I'm really like have to they say something, I don't know.
I know. I'll vividly remember telling you one time in a meeting, I'm like, Morgan, you have to speak the kind of English that's in the Webster's dictionary because I can't spend the whole day Googling your terminology.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, well, you can just hop, skip, but then kind of specific, like when you got to TCI or whatever.
Well, so that's an interesting story. So I moved to St. Louis. I started in field sales, and Springfield was part of my territory. And very early on, I made a trip down here, and I went to a fabricator, and the fabricator, as I was leaving, was like, "Hey, you're not going to that new tank components place, are you?" And I was like, "Oh, no, not me." And, I got in the car and made a couple phone calls and found out where they were, and I drove to Tank Components' first location over on College Avenue, literally right behind Paul Mueller. And I went in, and there's 6 dudes in there that are like covered in crap from head to toe. And they literally look like homeless people. And they're in there, and they're just trying to clean this dump of a building up. It was mud and crap on the floor. The office was a shambles. I wouldn't let a dog use the bathroom in there.
Oof.
It was just bad. But, I had a conversation with all the guys, and I fell in love with them. When I left there, I was just like, golly, man, what an electric group of men that is, So that kind of started our relationship.
Because I was going to say, that was way back when they had first started, right? In 2000.
That was 22 years ago, yeah. So, Jason and I became friends. Dale, Mike, Randy. We all became friends, and we would do stuff every time I came to town. And Tank Components was never like a really big customer for me, but Jason was always a really good source of information of telling me what was going on with my types of materials in the market. So it was kind of like pointing me like where I need to go while I'm in Springfield kind of deal. So in 2004, David Starr bought Tank Components, and that made a lot of things possible. One of the things that Jason tried to do was bring me on board in 2004, and I had some conversations with my then wife, and she was like, "No, I'm not moving to Springfield. I live in St. Louis." And I was like, "Okay, then we'll just live in St. Louis."
Yeah.
So fast forward a couple of years, I got promoted at Haynes. I moved to Indiana. This was still, this territory was still, I was still responsible for it, but I had sales guys that, did the actual calling on. So I only came down about maybe once a year, every other year, something like that. So, in 2016, my ex-wife, who was my wife at the time, had found her biological family.
Shoot.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it was crazy because, she never tried to figure any of this out until after her dad died. And then after her dad died, they had to empty the safe deposit box and found all the papers and everything. Well, it turns out she has a half-sister that lives in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is just on the north side of Oklahoma City. And we were coming down to spend Thanksgiving with them. And we were going to stop in St. Louis, spend the night, and then finish the drive. Well, I got to St. Louis, and I'm like, I'm not stopping. I got to finish this. I got to get closer. I don't want to have the same drive the next day. So I drove, and I got to Rolla, and I was like, yeah, I can make it further than this, So I got to Springfield, and I'm like, the kids were cranking out at this point, and the wife was ready for, the night to end, and I was like, all right, we'll stop in Springfield. So I stopped in Springfield, checked in the hotel, and on the coffee table was the 417 magazine, and it had a picture of a big buck on it and everything, and I took a picture of it, and I sent it to Jason, and I just said, the answer is no, no, and no. And like 5 seconds later, my phone rings, and he ended up talking for like an hour. And, the whole time he's, just catching up, because it had been a little bit since we talked,
Yeah.
And we just had a really nice conversation. I went on to Oklahoma City. We had Thanksgiving, and I was home. And that Monday morning, I was driving to work, and Jason sends me a text, saying, call me as soon as you get to the office. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, what's going on with tank components? So I start calling the office, ahead before I even got there. I'm like, what open orders do we have for tank components? What are we late on? Are there any quality issues?
Right.
I'm thinking, I want to get ahead of this. I just don't want to call Jason. And then he's like, well, you are destroying our world down here in Springfield, Missouri with your late delivery or whatever.
Right.
And nothing was cooking, so I called him up, and we started a conversation, and that was a little over maybe 5.5 years ago.
Wow. That's awesome. So then just picked up the family and moved here?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that simple, but yeah, we moved here. We moved here in 2017. I started work in April, and then the family moved down at the end of July when Sam's summer baseball season was over.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Jeff is the VP of sales here at Tank Components. So when you graduated college, was that like you knew I want to do sales? Was that always a passion for you, or
no? You get another curveball. Congratulations.
He's like, actually, I was studying photography.
Sorta, yeah. I actually wanted to go to law school, and I was studying pre-law. And while I was in school, one of my best friends' dads was a lawyer, and he had a pretty frank conversation with me one night, and really, for the most part, talked me out of law school.
Wow.
And at that point, I was really like, I just really need to get my 4-year degree underneath me. I've got nothing but time. I was single.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah. Shoot. So then, obviously, you met the guy from, like, your country club or whatever, and then sales, and then just been in the stainless steel world pretty much since then?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because my son Sam's always like, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And I'm always like, Sam, if you think I was 18 years old, a senior in high school, going, when I'm 52, I want to be living in Springfield, Missouri, and running a stainless steel tank components company. That, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd never even heard of any of this stuff at that point in my life. Didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, but it's a great culture, great people. I mean, I was literally telling one of my friends the other day, I'm like, a year ago I was in class, figuring it out, and I never would have thought I'd be doing marketing at a metal company, but, it's awesome, so you just don't ever know what's going to happen in your life, No,
that's exactly right, and that's what I've been trying to explain to Sam, who's 18. I'm like, hey, man, you still have a lot of world left in front of you. Don't rush it.
Right.
Just let it happen. I think some kids, they know what they want to do. They want to be doctors. They want to be accountants. They have a clear path, and they started in high school. I didn't. Sam's focus has been sports. Now, my daughter, different story. I mean, she's so focused. She's like laser focused. She gets straight A's. She's the president of the student body for the freshman class.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think by the time Juliana gets to her senior year, she's probably going to be like, yeah, Dad, I want to do this, and then I want to do this, and then I want to do this. And the only thing Sam wants to do is play baseball. And I'm down for either one. There's nothing wrong with either one of those things.
But even if he doesn't know, like, career-wise, I mean, he knows baseball. And who knows, career-wise, what that could end up in, so.
No, and it's awesome. And baseball's competition, and competition teaches you a lot about life and a lot about getting over unexpected hurdles that come up along the way.
Right.
So I'm completely and very proud of him. I'm very proud of my daughter as well.
That's awesome. Jeff is a great dad, guys. Yeah. 100%. So kind of on the career topic. So someone like me, an entry level position in marketing, stuff like that. What advice would you give to someone in my position who one day would maybe want to be a VP like you? What were things that you did or that kind of helped you grow in your career and get promoted and all those things? Well,
I'll tell you what I didn't know at the time that I was doing that got recognized is I was always trying to make things better. I mean, you get handed a job and they tell you these are the expectations and this is what we want you to do. And I think, not intentionally, I just think I've always had that drive to, hey, let's make this better. Let's make it better for me. Let's make it better for you. Let's make it better for the company. Let's just keep marching to make this better. And after you've made it better, look at it again and say, how can I improve on that even more?
Yeah.
Even if your job doesn't tell you to do that, when you take a job, you should just say, hey, I am going to make this, I'm going to do this better than anybody else can do it on planet Earth. Anybody that's done it before me, and I'm going to set the table for anybody that's going to be coming after me.
That's a great mindset.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm taking notes right now. So. Yeah. Okay.
And I mean that, like, really and now that I manage people, you know, when you come to work, I want you to like what you're doing. I want it to be exciting for you. I want you to think this is the coolest place on planet Earth you can work. And I think that's what drives a lot of what, you know, Jason and I have done for 5 years. I mean, we look at things, you know, we don't sit in here and try to figure out how to do things out on the shop floor. We talk to the guys out on the shop floor and ask them what they think, you know, would make things better for them out there. Because, you know, can I dish a tank head? Absolutely. Am I proficient at it? Absolutely not. Do I know enough about it to try to make an improvement to it? Absolutely not. Now, if I did it for a couple of years, maybe, but I don't. So,
yeah, that's good. That's great. So kind of going along with that, you know, the 8 to 5 job, being in that for, you know, a number of years, how do you go to work each day, you know, have an 8-hour day and make it fun and exciting?
Well, I think it comes back to what are you doing? I mean, if you're just sitting there doing the minimum and just trying to accomplish the task that you've been, you know, given specifically, your day is going to be a grind. I mean, it's going to be slow. You're going to be looking at the clock a lot. But I think if, you know, you're handed something and you're like, how do I do this? How do I do it better? You know, this process that I'm using, I know that there's got to be a better way for, you know, this to happen. And I think the cool part about that is I've always worked for companies that have been really receptive towards input from the people that work for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is huge. You know, the people essentially are the company. And there are bigger companies that, you know, do well from the surface, but internally they're like the people aren't happy or their turnover is really high.
I came from a very good company where it was, I mean, you could tell by department, you know, who had a good management team and who didn't. And when you work for a company that's that big, you know, it's hard to really put, you know, rock stars in every position because you just got so many positions. So you would see some really well-run departments with really happy people, and then you would see some people that you knew were miserable from the minute they punched in to the minute they punched out.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's tough. Okay, so transitioning a little bit, real talk.
Real talk.
First impression of me, my first week of work. Be nice, you know.
That's your audience. You want them to hear it, I'll give it to them. How about that?
Okay.
Well, okay, so I was really excited when you came on board. Obviously, I think you know that, you know, Jason and I have a very good balance of how we bring people in, and you know, it was a new position. We wanted somebody that had new ideas and that had, you know, a lot more exposure to the different marketing platforms that exist that we have, you know, no real hands-on knowledge of. So I was super excited when you came on board. I was super excited at your enthusiasm and the energy that you bring to
Appreciate you, Jeff.
to it every day. No, really. I mean that. I mean, I can tell, like, when I give you something, and I could tell this from day one, you know, you would get it and you'd be like, okay, yeah, this is mashable. I can make this work. So, yeah, you make a really good first impression.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was real. You made a good impression on me, too. Jeff is funny. Like, I remember when we started doing the CRM, and he was like, Morgan, I'm going to start giving you the leads to give to the sales team. But Jeff does it funny because he does it in riddle form. But I'm not I don't want to be like I'm not smart, but I'm Googling like all of these riddles trying to figure out what sales guy to give to.
Okay, let's back up here. So when she says I give it to in riddle form, what that really means is that, like, I will pinpoint the location on a map, and then I will say something about that location in the form of a riddle so that they can read it and say, okay, let's see, this is a flat piece of land close to an ocean. So I'm in, I don't know, Terra Marina or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So
I don't even.
Just so people know.
Do you remember like any of the riddles you would say or know on the top of your head or anything?
Well, you know, I've got the stupid ones, like the one where I say YOU and then TALL and then question mark Utah.
Yeah.
For Utah, you know. That's a pretty what Juliana would describe as a dad joke way of passing some information along. Yeah.
It was just so funny to me because some of them were actually really challenging. I was like, I've never met someone who would do this, and that's so cool.
Well, I think some of the guys geek out on. I think Pope rolls his eyes, but I think Josh really geeks out on it a little bit. Yeah.
He's like, yes.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I got this one.
And I'm sitting here, I'm just like, okay, I'm not gonna ask because I don't want to sound. Ooh, that's funny. So obviously you've talked about your kids. So do you want to talk about kind of how old they are and?
Yeah. So Sam's 18. He's a senior at Nixa High School. He is on the baseball team. He is a key contributor for the Nixa Eagles Baseball Club. He's going on to play college ball next year at State Fair Community College. Juliana, like I said, she is more of my my kids are like yin and yang, right? Like Sam cannot be in the house in his room. I mean, if he's in his room, he's sleeping. Juliana, on the other hand, she can be in her room. She loves doing the TikToks, but she could just as easily be doing like a painting or working on some kind of. She does a lot of artsy stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, really cool art stuff, and she likes to read, which is really weird because I can't read.
I can't do my ADHD. I just cannot sit down and. Unless you're at a beach or something,
Nah, I can't even do it at the beach. There's nothing riveting about reading black dots on white paper. I mean, it's like horrid. I mean, I know it's great and a lot of people enjoy it and it's therapy for some people. I used to do the books, by tape.
Yeah.
So you could go to Cracker Barrel, right? You know what Cracker Barrel is?
I really don't. I don't rock with. I don't rock with Cracker Barrel. There's like 3 places in the world I never want to go, and then one of them is Cracker Barrel.
All right, yeah. So I get you. I feel you there. But they have this deal where like you can go into a Cracker Barrel and have a gift shop, and they'll have like a book on a CD,
right?
And you can check it out, say in Memphis, Tennessee, and you can listen to it on your drive to say, Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah.
And go to Cracker Barrel in Pensacola, Florida, and turn it in and get your deposit back.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's like a library, but Cracker Barrel
exactly.
Styles.
Yeah. So I used to do that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Probably haven't read or listened to anything since.
That's okay. You can listen to yourself later on the podcast. So there you go.
Maybe.
Well, Sam's doing pretty good baseball-wise, right?
Yeah. He's he's having a great season. The whole team's having a great season. They're like 23-1 on the season. They're ranked 25th in the whole United States.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's awesome.
Man.
Yeah.
So, transitioning a little bit, relationship status.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's bad. I hope your folks that are listening to this are just ready for boredom. I got no relationships going on. I don't even have a dog.
Well, I don't either. I can't take care of one. So.
I do have partial custody of my daughter's dog. So.
Okay, yeah. Of your daughter's dog.
Yeah, every other weekend I have Daisy.
Oh, there you go. That's cute.
Yeah, she's a good dog.
Yeah. So obviously you've mentioned you have like an ex-wife. So how was dealing with that while also being full-time and having 2 kids? Was that like what challenges came with that?
Well, yeah, it's challenging. And it's it's not a horrible challenge, but there's just the unexpected. It's always the unexpected. Like everybody wants the world to work like this is the time you get the kids, blah 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 blah. But there's just always something that comes up and. That's kind of the real challenge. Other than that, I think we handle it well. I think the kids handle it well. It was a transition period for sure, but now it's kind of behind me, and Sam's getting ready to go to college. Julianne will have her license in January, so she'll be a free spirit and be able to she won't have to worry about how am I getting home from school.
Right. Just make sure I'm not on the road when she's on the road. So
yeah, same. Yeah. No, she's actually a really good driver.
That's great. That's really good.
Yeah, I've got like this impossible scenario to pull into a garage. I have a 2-car garage that is at the most a 1-car garage, and there's this big steep hill, steep driveway that goes into the garage. So when you pull in, you really can't see what you're pulling into because you're really looking at the ceiling in the garage. And she's got it nailed. I mean, she just pulls it in, boom, like nothing.
Man.
And I still sweat it.
I could never. I probably couldn't get up the hill, but that's awesome for Juliana. Rock on.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you think you would ever see yourself maybe ever in a relationship ever again?
Yeah. It's funny. Like right now, I just don't think I have the available time to be a fair partner to someone. You know, I chase my son around a lot on the baseball field, and I have my kids every other weekend, and I'm not going to schedule any time, you know, to hang out with somebody on my kids' weekend.
Right.
And would be way too awkward for me to start dragging somebody to Sam's baseball games. I'm not going to put that on him, or Juliana, you know, for that fact on him. So I think once Sam gets into college, that'll open up a little bit of a new chapter for me.
Yeah. Rock on, Jeff. Yeah. So my next question is, you know, as someone working full time and, you know, being a great dad and all these things, so how do you not like find time to support Sam and all the baseball things, but, you know, being a full-time athlete too can be so hard on kids' mental health and stuff like that. So how do you support him in being successful in that and pushing him to achieve greatness and all of those things?
Well, you know, I do try to listen to everything that he says and not brush any of it off. I mean, if he tells me he's tired, you know, I tell him to rest. I mean, if he tells me he wants to talk, I make myself available to talk. You know, Sam is a lot like me. He's a very powerful extrovert that also doesn't, you know, he's got kind of a wall that he keeps around himself at all times. But he's got a really good group of friends, and that's the one thing that I feel probably the best about is like when I look at the guys that he's running around with, I know they're all making pretty good decisions for being where they're at, the age they are, what's available for them. I mean, so, but, you know, at the end of the day, I beat myself up a little bit, you know, for, you know, maybe saying something to Sam about baseball that maybe I shouldn't say. You know, like the other day, he said, he's like, daggone it, Dad. He's like, man, I am creaming the ball. I'm absolutely creaming it, but I'm just hitting it right at people. And I said, well, just find a gap. And he's like, oh, nice, Dad. Like, I'm not trying to find a gap. You don't think I'm trying to find a gap? And I'm just like, oh, man, I felt horrible. I mean, literally, I felt like an inch tall. And then
that's like every conversation with Mug.
and then one of the other dads standing next to me, he says, he said, you keep hitting the ball hard and good things will happen. And Sam's like, see, Dad, that's what you should have said.
Jeff's like, sorry I didn't pull up the Pinterest quote. Like,
I'm like, man.
Believe in yourself. Like,
No. But it's all good. You know, I try to support him in every way that I can. What I try to do is be positive. I mean, even when things aren't going good, I just say, hey, man, you know, like if he doesn't pitch well, and he never doesn't pitch well. He always pitches well, you know, but to his, like, opposite, you know, when he says, well, I just hit it right at the players, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when he's pitching bad, it's not that he's, you know, hitting people or anything like that. It's just those players are getting lucky and they're fine. You know, they luckily get into the gap. So.
Well, I think it's hard for any parent. You know, you just want to. There's a line between, like, and my parents too. It's like, oh, Morgan, like, we love you, support you, but also you want to be honest with your kid. You want to give them like that healthy criticism. But sometimes you just want to, you know, you're just like, Mom, just tell me you love me and let's move on. You know, like.
And I get that, but I'm also a little bit of a real life guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, you are going to be in situations where your parents aren't going to be there to protect you. And you've got to learn to protect yourself. And
that's right.
I try to preach that to both of my kids. I don't have any fear that either one of them would not know how to respond to a situation that was confrontational or adversarial, you know, because it's going to happen. I mean, you know, you're going to be somewhere where somebody does something. And, you know, I've tried to talk to both of them about it. You got to be tough. I mean, you can't. Unfortunately, had a conversation with a guy the other day. His son was 8 hours away playing at a baseball game, having a phenomenal game. Got hit by a 92-mile-an-hour fastball. Knocked him to the ground.
Oh, my gosh.
And his son's 8 hours away. 8 hours away. I couldn't imagine. But I'm getting ready to get into that situation. Not 8 hours, but, I mean, far enough away that I can't run onto the field.
Yeah.
So...
It definitely is hard. I mean, I know being away from my parents, you know, like 11 hours, but definitely it made my heart grow fonder. You know, I was like, I'm homesick. I miss you. I never was like that in high school. Love you, Mom. Love you, Dad, for real. But, you know, there's those moments where I'm like, man, I wish I could just eat dinner with them on a Sunday night, you know, and you can't. But
I think Sam's moments are going to be like, I wish my dad would have done my laundry for me. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, Jeff, I feel like you're a story guy. You got a lot of crazy experiences. What would you say is like one of the wildest or craziest stories in your entire life?
Oh God, Morgan, we're not going there.
I mean, whatever. I mean, I know you have probably a million, but
I have thousands. I mean, it is literally a miracle that I am walking on planet Earth today. I mean, it is. I've seen everything this world has to offer.
That's just wild to me. Okay, well, is there one story where you're like, man, I just can never believe this ever happened, you know?
So, this is one that you should have prepped me for.
Okay.
I turned down all the prep on the last part of the deal, but this right here, I don't even need prep.
I'm Jeff Russo. Like, I'm just
yeah, something like that. Let's see. Wild stories.
Like for me, one of my craziest wild stories was, meeting a throuple after, running into GA, sneaking into that at a concert. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. I've never, but I mean, I know you have wild stories. I mean, Jeff is a goofy guy. Like the Christmas party night, we all went to hang out afterward, and then he's like, oh, I'm gonna leave, and we're walking back from the rooftop bar or whatever, and Jeff is breakdancing in the middle of the street to a bunch of random people. I'm like, this is my boss. It was awesome. Did a good job.
Well, so I'll tell you, unfortunately for me, I've had a lot of life experiences, so everything's been a little bit, I've got like a crazy story for every year of my life probably, but so one of my best friends is a musician, and he is a very talented man. Well, I'd say young man. We're not young men anymore. But so I've met a lot of famous people, and somebody's always telling me like, hey, what's the most famous person you ever met? I can't tell you because I've met so many famous people that I don't know. I mean, it depends on what you consider famous. I mean, do you like actors? Do you like actresses? Are you into rock stars? I mean, what do you want to know?
I like this game. Let's play this game. Yeah.
Right. So here, I'll play this game with you.
Okay, let's go.
So we're in, Trace and I are out in California, and I think we're in Van Nuys, and he's working at Goodnight LA, which was a guy named Keith Olsen, who was really the backbone of Sound City, which is where a lot of really, really famous bands got their start. Nirvana recorded their first album there.
Nice, yeah.
Fleetwood Mac. I mean, like all these icons, right? And I would go out there see Trace, and Trace would be like, well, blah, blah, blah's in the studio today. And I'm not starstruck. So I was just like, yeah, whatever. And, do you want to go? Nah, not really. So, there was one day I had to go to the studio with him, and so I can't remember who was recording that day, but Keith had an appointment and he had to leave. Keith Olsen was a very famous record producer. And Keith comes up to me and goes, hey, Jeff, he goes, you mind, finding out whose Suburban that is over there? But they got to move it because I can't get my car out. And then he drove a Ferrari. So I go rolling across this parking lot, and I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like this little cluster of warehouses and these interconnected buildings, but there's only one way in and out, right? And this Suburban's blocking that way in and out. So I go over there.
You're in the Ferrari?
No, I'm just walking up.
Okay.
No, I just walked across. Walked across the parking lot, and I see the people in there that I think is the owner of the Suburban, and I yell in there. I'm like, hey, is this your all Suburban out here? And this guy turns around, and he looks really familiar, and I'm like,
it's like Kanye West.
He turns around, and he's like, yeah, what's going on? And about that time, out of the corner of my eye, I see this street sign that says Willis Boulevard. And I said, well, you're blocking the driveway, and Keith's got a meeting. He needs to get out. Can somebody move the Suburban? And he just got kind of nasty with me. Well, if we could just hold on a couple minutes, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, hey, man, I said, I'm just saying, he's got a meeting. If you guys could just move this thing out of the way. So there's another guy, and this is Bruce Willis, by the way. And
slight flex.
Yeah. So Bruce looks at this other guy, and I can't remember his name. Trace said he was some guy that was in a movie called The Burbs or The Blurbs or something. I don't know. And so he asked this other guy to move the car for him, and the guy comes out and moves the car. And so I walk back over, and I'm telling Trace, is like, hey, thanks for getting that done. I'm like, yeah, man. I said, the guy that I had to ask, I said, he was a real jerk. And I said, but I think it was Bruce Willis. And Trace is like, really? I'm like, yeah. So Trace opens up the door to the studio and screams out to Bruce Willis. He's like, Bruce, you're a weenie. And I'm like, first off, I'm like, weenie? Really?
Right.
That's the word you're going to use. But that's the word he used.
I feel like you're a weenie if you use the word weenie.
So anyway, then Demi Moore, who was Bruce Willis's wife at the time, she comes out and she walks up to me and she's pregnant and she's wearing this tie-dye jumpsuit, you know, like the pants and the shirt match, and she's apologizing to me. She's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, you know, he's just in a bad mood. And they were picking up, she was pregnant, and I guess they'd had a child before, and all their like baby stuff was in the storage unit, so they were there picking up the storage stuff.
Man,
so
that's wild. So why don't you get starstruck? Like, is there no one where you're like, man, this person was here right now, I would just lose my mind, you know?
I don't know. I mean, that's weird, but I mean, like, I've been in restaurants, Jamie Lee Curtis sat like a table next to me, and I didn't even have the desire to say anything to her.
I got a couple words for her today. I'm just kidding. That's crazy. That's wild.
Yeah, that was at Spago. We went to Spago, and so Trace's dad was really good friends with a fellow that was, I don't think they were married. I think they were just like 20, 30-year boyfriend, girlfriend thing.
Yeah.
But her name was Rona Barrett, and Rona Barrett was like the Oprah Winfrey of the 70s, right? She knew everybody. And I was out there, and, you know, Bill was like, well, do you want to go to Spago? I'm like, well, what's Spago? He's like, it's the most famous restaurant in the world. And I'm like, well, sure, I want to go to the most famous restaurant in the world.
So how'd you meet this guy Trace or whatever that has all these connections?
Huntington. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So he was my best friend. So like when my dad passed away, the Ritters kind of adopted me, you know, into their family. Bill was like my father figure.
That's awesome.
And Bill was just stud. They don't make bills anymore. Bills aren't made anymore.
Dang.
Unfortunately. Yeah, he was a rock star. He's just one of those guys. I mean, he walked in the room, he owned it. I mean, you just looked at him, you're like one of my favorite stories about Bill is they were in Washington, D.C., just showing the kids like the Smithsonian and the Washington Monument and all this. And they're walking down the street, and this limo pulls over, and they're like, excuse me, sir, do you need a ride somewhere?
What?
Yeah. And Bill's like, no, we're fine. We're just walking, and we're, you know, just having a little tour here. And he's like, well, thank you, Senator. The dude thought he was a senator. Bill,
oh my gosh.
Bill never held a political office, but he just had that look, man.
Was he like a big guy or something? Oh yeah,
he was a tall and just handsome, hair slicked back, always wore a suit. Always.
Just pulls over, thinks he's a senator.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, I mean, Bill was like calm. Bill was like the calmest dude ever. Yeah.
Probably should have been a senator. So.
He should have been. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. So the story at the restaurant in California.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sitting at this table next to Jamie Lee Curtis, and she'd just been on one of the late night shows, and she's, you know, obviously gorgeous.
Right.
And she's wearing this gorgeous dress, and, you know, and I sit there for like a half hour, and Tracy's like, you know who that is, right? And I'm like, no, I don't have a clue. And he's like, oh, that's Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm like, oh, yeah, it is, isn't it? So at some point, I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom. So in California, the bathrooms are unisex, meaning there's only one, you know, lavatory in each room. You just wait your turn, and whoever comes out, you just go in after them, lock the door, do your thing, you know.
Right.
So I'm waiting in line, and this guy comes up, and he's like, so which one are you? Are you rich or are you famous? And I just turned around and looked at him. I'm like, both. Just deadpan.
Right.
Classic Russo deadpan style. Just looking at him, both.
That's awesome.
So that left him a little speechless, because I think he was trying to figure out who I was.
They're like trying to Google you. So when you're in a place like that, can you...
No Google back then. Pre-Google. Pre-Google,
Oh
Morgan.
my God. So when you're in a place like that, like, could you ever approach Jamie Lee Curtis or, you know, anyone like that? Or...
I don't know.
Yeah?
Probably not. I think I have more respect for people's privacy than that.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I'd let her approach me, obviously.
I would too.
Yeah.
So, quick little change. Do you have any thoughts on Elon Musk buying Twitter?
Yeah, I do. And it's interesting that you asked me that. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were asking that I'm asking you that.
No, I think that's great too. So you get two greats. Boom,
Okay.
boom.
Boom.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, no, I think it's a really good thing. I think that's... I don't know. I don't want to get too political.
Right.
I knew you were going to drag me down political road.
Well, I don't do political.
No,
I'm
no,
like,
I know,
I literally am
I know.
like, I don't talk political. But this is, but I'm a Twitter person. You know, I'm a pop culture person. And that's all over everywhere.
My whole thing, my whole hope in this whole thing is that I think that you have people that have opinions, and if they don't like people that share the same opinion, they have the power to muzzle you on a public platform. I don't think that's right.
Right.
You know, I don't think that, anybody should be able to say, oh, whoa, you're silenced. You can't talk anymore because we don't have the same opinion. Because I got news for planet Earth. I mean, we are going to coexist on this earth for the rest of eternity without having 100% agreement 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've been here for how long, and we've never had it. I don't foresee it ever being possible. And, as long as he does what he has said he's committed to do, I'm a gamer. I mean, a complete gamer.
So do you think, him owning Twitter now, do you think it's going to be more free speech, less free speech, or anything not affected?
I think you'll see a lot less censorship based on political ideologies. I mean, in my opinion, I think the things that need to be muzzled are the people that have violence. If you're going to threaten violence, or you're going, hey, let's all get together at McDonald's and burn the place down at midnight, that needs to be censored. But if you're saying something that is just your political opinion, that's your political opinion. And I think a lot of what has clouded all of this was, we had the coronavirus. We had a lot of different opinions on treating the coronavirus, or the precautions and the measurements that everybody should take. And I think the problem with that is even the experts had differing opinions, and depending on which expert you agreed with basically determined your availability to express your opinion, and I think that's not right. So if they said this guy that lives down the block from me says XYZ, well, I mean, you're citing your source. I mean, if you're gullible enough to say, oh yeah, man, Chef Russo's neighbor,
right,
whatever,
drop my pin, this is my location.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Well, we'll see. It'll be a game changer. I think there's just been way too much. I think there's just been way too many politics that have gotten involved in social media.
Right.
And to be quite honest with you, that's the reason why I got off Facebook in 2000, I want to say 15 or 14, is because I've got enough in my life without worrying about everybody else's opinion on a lot of things.
Twitter is for memes. It is for sports. It is for me to tweet whatever I want.
Well, no. Like for me, I like Instagram. I mean, Instagram's all about pictures. I mean, I just share a picture, give it a little caption, move on.
Bada bing, bada boom. Yeah.
If you say something bad about it, I come to your house. We have a conversation. It might get physical, but at the end of the day, I'll respect your opinion.
You still like my photo,
Right. It's just a picture. But but I have noticed that even Instagram is starting to get infiltrated with a lot of the political crap too. So who knows? Yeah.
I mean, TikTok too. And, I think I agree. When COVID was happening, it was just such an influx that I literally just was off because I don't want to hear it. You want some positivity in your life. Social media sometimes for me is just an escape to, where you decompress. And when it's just filled with news and all these sad things, I'm like, I'm trying to escape from my own sadness.
No. And on Facebook, I've watched so many relationships that were, I mean, not solid, but I mean, at least cordial, dissolve into, such horrible vitriol that, people talking about people's dead parents and things. And it's just like, I mean, you're going to go there? Yeah. I couldn't go there, that's the problem with a lot of social media is you get to hide behind your keyboard and your screen and everything. It's not face-to-face communication, old school. Yeah. A lot of stuff that happens on Facebook and Twitter and all that. In my day, if we would have had that conversation face-to-face, there would probably been some fist flying.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's honestly wild how, kids get social media young. You go on TikTok and someone could comment on your video, like kill yourself when they have no profile picture. It's user 12345, and and it kills your self-esteem. And
yeah, you get all that anonymity. Yeah.
It's a hard word, to be honest.
It is a hard word.
I don't even know how to spell it, so.
Well, my favorite word's onomatopoeia, so if you want to write that down.
That's your favorite word?
Absolutely.
So Jeff does this thing where, Boomcakes, I've never heard it in my whole life.
That's a Jason thing.
Is it a Jason thing?
It's a Jason thing.
I thought it was a you thing.
No, I picked up from Jason.
Well, now I say it all the time, so I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, Boomcakes, like...
Yeah, I mean, that's a great term, and I love it.
It is a great term.
Yeah, because, I mean, a lot of people, you pump your fist, that's like a boom, right?
Yeah.
And then you get your little dessert, Boomcakes,
Boomcakes.
Right?
Coin that.
Bring me the dessert.
Oh,
he should have trademarked that or something, because that's a good one.
Yeah, because now I'm going to take it. I'm just kidding.
Well, you're probably too young for this, but there was a high school sports announcer, just an amateur kid that would announce us high school.
Yeah.
And this kid sinks just an unbelievable field goal in basketball, and he goes, and boom goes the dynamite. And I mean, boom goes the dynamite. I mean, It just everybody was saying it for 18 months.
Yeah.
In the whole country. Boom goes the dynamite.
Well, for a while, The Office, that one episode, boom roasted. I used to say that all the time, boom roasted, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know. Oh. Well, as we close, one of my last questions before I get into my usual thing is, what is your favorite part about being a dad and also a vice president?
Well, okay, I think my favorite part about being a father is the love that my kids show me. I mean, I don't know. I never really, I remember when I was getting married, I was like, I'm standing on this altar, and I don't know, I'm getting ready to get married, and I'm thinking to myself, this is permanent. This is permanent, right? Because you don't do a whole lot of things in life that are permanent, right? Well, then...
Me and my 5 tattoos. I'm just kidding.
No, because you can get those removed.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I can show you. I got a butcher on my arm that, I've tried to have one removed. It's the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life.
I'm sure that had to hurt.
Oh, you think it hurts going on? It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing.
That's what I've heard, yeah.
But I will say this. They've refined that technology greatly, so I bet you that it's not as bad anymore, the laser technology. So anyway, I'm sitting up there, I'm thinking, that's permanent, right? But then when Sam was born and when we adopted Juliana, I'm like, this is permanent. This is the only thing that's really permanent.
Yeah.
Is being a parent. Marriages and like mine and divorce, but Sam and Juliana are not ever going to be my kids. And I will always have this unbelievable love for them. Mm-hmm. It is, I don't know how to explain it, because I've always tried to do this. You can't explain it to somebody that's never had kids. Mm-hmm. You just can't. I mean, it is a love that is bigger than you. I mean, it's a love that you will die for. Wow. You will absolutely
I don't even want kids for a long time.
Die for.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell, I know you do. You told some of your besties, well, I'd die for you. I'd take a bullet for you, or you do whatever. Yeah.
You know who you are.
You might, but I'm just telling you, for your kids, you will. Mm-hmm. Or I will. But I think every parent probably feels similar to what I'm saying, trying to verbalize here.
But you're right. Even people who aren't confrontational, they're like, oh, I don't want to, like in my family, I mean, I don't want to put my, but if someone's not super confrontational or not, they're kind of more passive. When it comes to their kid, they will confront you. They will show up. They'll send the email because that's their kid, and they're going to fight. I know both my parents would fight and do anything for me.
Oh, yeah. And so I'm an animal lover, and I love my children. And we were at some friend's house one time, and they had not a young puppy, like a year-old dog. And the dog is kind of aggressive occasionally. And Juliana is just, on this dog. And I can see the dog's getting aggressive. And I just looked at Juliana. I said, cut it out right now. I said, because if that dog bites you, I will kill it. And she knew that I was like stone cold serious. I mean, she knew that like that I just spoke a fact. And I
don't think my parents would go that far.
No, I've never seen Juliana. I mean, the look on her face. But I mean, and I probably shouldn't have said it. But I was just like in this spot, and this was going on, and I'm thinking this dog's gonna bite my daughter.
Right.
It is not gonna happen. And if it does, it's not gonna end well. And I just wanted Juliana to know that. I'm like, now's the time to stop doing that because that's how much I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think my mom told me when I was a baby they had a cat, and I think the cat wasn't like vibing with a new baby, and I don't know if it touched me once, but she was like, get that thing, on the street, or I don't even know.
Cats.
No more cat. Like,
that's now a feral cat.
I've been scarred ever since. PTSD. I don't like dogs. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, now there's feral cats all over Green Bay.
Yeah.
And they all somewhat look like the cat that you had when you were an infant.
Yeah, you know what? You don't mess with this,
Yeah. Agree.
That's all. I think that's a perfect way you put it about your kids, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so many parents feel that way, and I hope I do someday,
You will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a long time.
That's all right. I didn't get married till I was 32.
Oh,
didn't have
for real?
Sam till I was 33. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I kind of like that timeline.
37 when Juliana came home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, favorite part about being a VP?
I think this is probably the easiest question to give me. My favorite part is I just feel like I make myself available enough that people are honest enough with me to tell me, things that they know that I can change for the better, and they know that I will make my best attempt at making changes for the better.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. All right, well, as we close, everyone who listens, thanks for listening along, you guys. I'm sorry. You all know I ask the same 3 questions at the end of every podcast. What is your legacy? What is your favorite quote? And what is your favorite song?
Okay, so I'll probably run this in reverse here. My favorite song is Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd.
Okay.
Yeah, so it reminds me of my dad. My dad died when I was younger. I was 13, and I ended up working in the same industry that he worked in for a while, and I would hear that song, and it just would bring back these awesome memories of my dad. So that's my favorite song.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then
quote.
So there was a Lou Holtz quote one time, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like, I don't care how rough the ocean is, just bring the damn ship in.
There you go.
Which I love. I'm just like, yeah, I get it. Like, there's all kinds of stuff going on in life. Yeah. But if you have a goal, you got to get to your goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get a flat tire on the way to work, you still got to go to work, right? Mm-hmm. But, and that's probably simplifying it way more than what I really think about that quote. And then the last one was what?
What would you like your legacy to be?
Oh, man. I've thought about that a lot as I've gotten older because I really don't have much of a legacy built. But I think at this point, my legacy is my children. I think they both are going to make a great impact on planet Earth and be great contributors to society. And, I just want to help them do that. So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on the show. Also, thank you for being a great boss. I mean, making me laugh, like what?
Yeah, so just for the record, so everybody on the podcast knows, I don't give Morgan her review.
He's there, though. You're there for, the rides.
So this isn't going to get her anywhere.
That's good. Okay, I tried. You're still a great boss, whether or not.
Yeah. All right, then.
That's funny. But yeah, just keep on listening on the podcast. Go ahead and follow the Instagram if you haven't. I have a lot of cool interviews coming soon and some fun stuff planned for summer. So, all right. Catch you guys later. Bye.